Hello and welcome to Qtr Time podcast in partnership with Lovell Netball. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P. And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed. Hello and welcome to a super special bonus episode of Qtr Time podcast. We are bringing you what started out as a cheeky little bonus episode and has since escalated to a mega juicy, ultra special bonus episode, as we will of course be digesting the England Roses World Cup 2023 squad announcement. It was a big day yesterday, wasn't it, Luce?
Huge, so highly anticipated.
Yeah, probably one of the biggest days of the year so far, would you agree?
For England fans, yeah. But for the rest of the world, maybe not so much. But for us, sort of sat there on tenterhooks wondering, what decisions have been made. It's huge.
So, Luce, give us a rundown of what we have coming up on today's episode.
So first up, we're going to be bringing you an exclusive interview with Rose's head coach, Jess Thirlby, who we speak to about the selection process, choosing the 12 and the wider 15, combinations, court coverage, players who missed out, and so much more. We're then going to give you our thoughts and reflections on the squad before bringing you a discussion with former England captain turned Sky Sports commentator Pam Cookey, alongside former Australian Diamonds head coach Lisa Alexander.
Oh, so not much then, just
a couple of minor chats.
And before our interview with Jess, do you want to just quickly recap the squad for us for anyone who has been living under a rock for the last couple of days?
Yes, definitely. So in the shooting end, we have Liv Cheen, Eleanor Cardwell, Helen Housby and Nat Metcalfe. In the mid-court, we have Chelsea Pittman, Jade Clark, Imogen Allison and Laura Malcolm. And our defensive end is Layla Gusketh, Fumi Fadoju, Fran Williams and Jiva Mentor. And of course, not forgetting our travelling reserves, we've got Sophie Drakeford-Lewis, Amy Carter and Halimat Adio.
Amazing. Here's our conversation with England Roses coach Jess Thirlby.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Jess, and everyone at the team. It's great to be able to speak to you. Firstly, congratulations on the announcement. It must be really a very significant moment for you to announce your first World Cup squad. We wanted to start by talking about the Commonwealth Games squad, and there's been 4 changes since that squad of 12 for the current World Cup squad, and 3 out of 4 of those are actually due to retirements where obviously players needed to be replaced. What do you think about this squad will be different to the outcome that we had last summer in Birmingham?
Well, I think those changes, however they've come about, those changes are an important point of difference for the team. I think to welcome and I guess celebrate the likes of Liv and Fumi, you kind of want to bottle up the freedom that they play with and make sure that we bring that with us into Cape Town. So I think I love the fact that we're able to, harness some of that breakthrough talent that everyone's so excited about, both internationally and domestically. And it is important actually to have some of those players that are less experienced, because they do play with a freedom that sometimes others can't, because they've been on the road a little bit longer. They understand the demands a little bit more. And I think that naivety actually is a brilliant opportunity. But we've also been able to get them in and around international netball. I know you've seen more of Fumi out on the court, but we took Liv over to Cape Town with us last year as part of the pre-Commonwealth Games prep. So she's been in and around a lot more than maybe people can see, I guess. So, really excited for that. And I think, positionally, we're 2 deep in everything, if not 3. And then we've got those 3 specialists most probably sat in each of the units. And I think we've just got a great balance in court coverage in the areas that we feel tactically is where some of the biggest challenges have come, but also celebrate some of our greatest strengths. So, we're going to hit most teams with 6'5" goal shooters. We don't have one. It's not, I'd love to say it's just not our style, but we just don't have them. And we play the game differently in our shooting circle. But defensively, that has always been a headache since I got the job, that I just knew it's not about focusing on a one-on-one matchup for us, mainly because that does a disservice to the strength and depth that I think we've got from the centre back to goalkeeper. So I think being able to kind of flood that unit with different options tactically, we can go big, sliding Layla out to the wing D that we've tested a little bit more. We can go dynamic, with the likes of Fumi and Imo, like real ball winners. But then we can do a real shutdown job with some of our other players, like a Laura Malcolm, a Jade Clark, a Fran Williams, And I think everything in between, like that's what really excites me about the multiple combinations that we've got back there. And I think, we need to have engines that are going to be able to see us through the tournament without any fade at all, physically. So having at least 3 players in that team that can front up at centre, as well as 2 that can front up at wing attack, I think is a great place to be. So I'm really confident around what I've seen, what I trust that those players can do, and the options that it provides us tactically. And I guess that kind of leads to that shooting end as well. Really, I appreciate it looks as though we've gone on a 3-5-4. We're very lucky to have Nat, who domestically slides across from wing attack to goal attack pretty often. But I've also known that she could do the job internationally. She never shies away from the shot. She's not our go-to in there, but she certainly is a value add in the sense that she's more than capable and wanting to be that option. So it is different. The dynamic's different. And also, I think the introduction of those 4 players, it both brings experience but freedom. And I think that this team need that in this major tournament in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that there, obviously, she's that 4th shooter position. And I think there were a lot of eyebrows raised where it became clear that Sasha Glasgow would be eligible for England's selection due to her heritage. And with Jo Harton obviously announcing her retirement, there could have been an opportunity there. Why did you decide not to select Glasgow, given she is only 24 and could potentially be part of the Roses for at least another cycle and on into the future?
My first reaction to that is she definitely can be part of the Roses moving forward. So I'm excited to kind of obviously continue to link in and connect with Sasha. She made herself known to us a little while ago, and we've been working with her and communicating with her pretty consistently ever since. She's a quality player. I don't disregard that at all. I think, sadly, on this occasion, timing feels to have beaten us a little bit. Any of the players that make top 4 in Suncorp, which I'm sure Dan and Fever have every intention to do, means that we won't really get them with us until we land in Stellenbosch on the 14th of July, giving us most probably a week and maybe 5 or 6 sessions to reconnect the group. That's challenging. I'm hopeful that Elle and Helen might too find themselves in that situation. And finals netball is important. It's a challenge anyway to reconnect the girls that we don't have with us as often, but to reconnect somebody whom we've never had in our training environment at all, has met few, if any, of our team, let alone played on the court. I think, in any other time with a little bit longer, most probably would have presented a stronger case. But with respect and moving forward, I'm really excited to explore Sasha, but at the same time, really confident. Elle, Helen, goal attacks, goal shooters, different styles, and Liv, that specialist goal shooter where I just wanted to do what she's done and continue. I think I'm really fortunate in the shooting end. I feel like we've got some brilliant talent, both in this 12 and actually sat outside of it this time. But I think moving forward, some great talent, of which Sasha can definitely be considered moving forward as well.
Just to probe a little bit more on the shooting end before we move on to other areas of the court. Obviously, we've seen that SGL has now got the reserve spot. She's sort of been taken out of the main 12, and we've seen Chelsea Pittman be brought in as that sort of backup wing attack option, which was definitely a hole that we had. Can you talk us through the sort of decision making around having Nat as that 4th shooter spot as opposed to SGL, who we know can do that wing attack backup, and bringing Chelsea and sort of how you've navigated those 3 players?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right in the sense of we needed to pay attention to that wing attack position. I think there are a couple of positions that we're most probably missing in terms of versatility. Goalkeeper to goal defence, we don't have many of those yet. And I don't think we have many centre wing attacks. We've got a couple, but most probably not many that are experienced in that role. So it kind of left us with a different challenge to think through. And you're absolutely right. Sophie has and can play wing attack. Chelsea is a specialist wing attack, and I guess our workings through that with the wider selection panel and reflections on what's worked against what opposition, what styles of play might we need. I think Nat and Chelsea are very different styles of wing attack, and I think that adds strength to the team. And I also think, as soon as we were pretty confident on Liv getting the nod in that shooting end, it's also value that Chelsea's been feeding her and feeding her particularly well. So there's always more than one approach, and you're absolutely right, and I'm more than confident that Sophie could come in either that goal attack or wing attack role if needed, which obviously is the first major tournament where that rule change has now happened. And she'll come in there with tons of experience on an international stage and yet still so young. So, I've got all the confidence in Sophie, but we've gone with this approach, and we're equally as confident and believe in having both Nat and Chelsea. And we didn't lead with Nat being the goal attack. That's not where this decision rested. I think it's once we addressed what we feel we really want across the balance of the team, and as we moved to what looked like a 3-5-4, then obviously the natural next question is to ask what, if anybody, or who, if anybody, can still give us and offer us something in the circle, and Nat can do that. So it was a win-win from our perspective, but certainly not led by Nat's ability to play goal attack.
Can you talk us through a little bit, because I think it's a bit of a grey area of the netball family in terms of how the selection is actually done. Like, we know there's a panel, we know that some of our greatest netball brains, like, you know, soundbirds, are also part of that panel. Can you talk us through how selection actually works practically?
Yeah, I guess there's a selection group, a wider selection group, where we've got a number of, I guess what they scout, they assess every minute every English eligible player plays in all competitions. So they assess players against set criteria. They put that into a database all year round. We have regular contact points across the year where we gather insights, thoughts, feedbacks, reflections, check and challenge where we feel players are at. And then there's a selection panel of 3 that ultimately makes the decision, whilst embracing that information. So it's pretty robust. You know, we have a lot of metrics as well as coach insight, and rightly so. And we have all domestic assessments as well as international assessments for those for whom that is appropriate for. But yeah, it's a really robust, and I'm pretty proud of that process. I think it's designed to try and help players to shine, not the other way round. But ultimately, the coach insight and combination of that with the quantitative information is where the value is most rich, really. And I'm really grateful to everybody that helps contribute in that space, and to check and challenge all of us in terms of our thinking.
I think it sounds like a very robust system with that panel. And I mean, who would be a coach, honestly, having to make these kind of decisions and make or break people's dreams, which is ultimately what you're holding in your hands. One thing I did want to just pick up on is that rule change to the 15, which can be named. So we know that that's obviously new for this year, for this tournament, as you mentioned. And knowing that you could replace someone if someone goes down with a tournament-ending injury, did that impact how you made that selection? Were you thinking, oh, okay, if this person goes down, we could bring this person in? And also, we understand that if a shooter goes down, you don't have to bring in your reserve shooter. You could bring in someone else. Is there anything tactically going on there that you think, oh, if this is happening, we might make this change?
Oh, you've made me question whether or not I've thought tactically enough about it now. No, I think the first part I'd like to answer is it definitely gives you a freedom of thought to think about the balance. So we have opted for our kind of more of a 3-5-4 as it appears, but we obviously know that we've got the security of Nat as well. I think every time you approach any selection, you always have that option of going down to 3 in each end. And it very much is driven by the versatility within your team, isn't it? You know, where you're fortunate to have a wing defence that can play goal defence, or, you know, any of those iterations. And that is always an option on the table. I think when you get closer to major tournaments, I think previously it would have felt more uncomfortable to be considering dropping down to 3, because obviously losing somebody in game 2 and seeing out the rest of the tournament is far from ideal if you don't have that versatility from unit to unit. And we obviously, you know, the girls back in 2019 sadly lost Layla, and most probably feel like that had an impact on the remainder of the tournament. So it definitely affords a freedom of thinking, I think, that just means you can open up that aperture a little bit and just say, okay, we could do it, because we can now do it with the safety net and the freedom that if needed, we could replace a player. And we hope to not be in that situation, but it certainly impacts in that sense. And I think that's a real positive thing. I think until you land on your 12, your 3 reserves, that was as hard as picking the 12, because your 3 reserves has to shift based on where you've landed on your 12. So positional cover, as well as where you feel players would best match up against the teams that you're going to meet, as well as any kind of, I guess, insights that you've had of those players, both internationally and domestically. So, the 3 definitely evolved for us depending on where we were moving towards a 12. And rightly so, you'd expect us to do that. And, you know, crudely, you do go through the 12 and you say, right, we lose this person. Who would we bring in next? And you go through that process as you should do, just in terms of making sure you've checked all scenarios. And I guess depending where we landed on the 12 in terms of versatility versus specialist, then affords you a chance to consider a specialist. Hallie most probably is a good example, more specialist goalkeeper as at the moment. But because we were only really carrying Jiva as the specialist goalkeeper, it affords you the chance for a like-to-like, because we know we've got some movement across the goal defence, wing defence position. So, yeah, it certainly plays out, but I saw it all as a real positive. It was just another consideration to make sure we paid attention to, really.
So just a question around, obviously we know there's been a lot of discourse about potential selections and everyone picking their own 12, and Tamsin Greenway did an article for Fox recently, and she had Amy Flanagan in her 12. And we know Amy's not expressed an interest in Rose's before. So did she put herself forward for selection at all this time round?
No, Amy didn't make herself available for selection. Yeah, so I think that's quite an easy answer.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Sorry, Martin, but yeah, that one wasn't an option.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. So I thought, if Tamsin, does she know something that we don't know? So I thought we'd better check. Another question around someone who's missed out, who I think is in career best form at the moment, is Vicky Oyesola. Can you talk us through sort of why she's missed out, particularly on that reserve spot to Hallie Adio?
Yeah, I think I agree, by the way. I think Vicky, in terms of the role that she's playing for Leeds Rhino, I think is doing a fantastic job. I think we're on the cusp of uncovering and being able to embrace a lot of brilliant goalkeepers. I'm really excited about that moving forward. And I think domestically, you're absolutely right to recognise Vicky's performances. I think Vicky's been in our programme before, and I definitely feel internationally like goalkeeper is most probably a big challenge. You know, like I think domestically, you can't fault what she's able to contribute on behalf of her Leeds Rhinos team. But I think the challenge is, as you guys know, the size that we're up against in that end of the court is already a bit of a challenge for us. So our strength lay in the collective of our back four and how we can wear teams down and win ball a little bit higher up the court. So I think as it stands, I think it's difficult to translate that with any degree of accuracy or confidence right now as to whether or not those goalkeeper performances domestically would translate internationally. And that's not through any fault of Vicky's. I think that's just a big challenge. And I also know that she's a really great goal defence and wing defence, but she just, at the moment, Leeds have needed her in the back. And you definitely can't criticise them for leaving her there, given the job she's doing. So I think that therein lies most probably, you know, the challenge that we've got of translating domestic performances into international. And obviously with Vicky not being around the programme in recent seasons, we don't have anything else to base that on. And the last time she was in, she certainly was more of a goal defence that showed some promise at wing defence. So, you know, again, moving forward, hopefully that door remains open, and what a story it would be for Vicky to kind of push herself back in. But yeah, I think that's fundamentally the main reason. And she's competing, what I believe, against some brilliant goalkeepers. You know, Hallie and Raz, both previously part of the programme. And if it wasn't for those horrible injuries, who knows where their trajectory would have taken them. But great to see them all back out on court. And yeah, the future's bright, definitely in that defensive circle moving forward.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously Raz Quashie there as well. She's another goalkeeper who could be in the mix, and Alice Harvey. I think it's a bit like buses. I think it's like maybe you had a bit of a gap and then they all kind of come along at once for the next cycle. But moving back into the mid-court question, so the average age of the mid-court, not including the reserve, is 32. Are we blooding enough youth, do you think, or bringing in enough of that difference to the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, look, I think there's a distinct difference between picking the best 12 that you think are going to give the team the greatest chances of success in the World Cup, and almost assume that work is still not being done and an investment isn't being made in the youth that's coming through. I think to see Amy Carter, the three reserves are young. They could have a brilliant career for the Roses moving forward. I think there's at least 8 or 9 spread across this 15 that I can see go into the next Commonwealth Games and World Cup. So the skeleton of that next group is there, and it's really exciting. So I think that investment in our youth is there, has been there. You've most probably picked up on the fact I'm pretty greedy, and whenever we have internationals, I'm asking for more, and I'm trying to create opportunities for England A groups and youngsters to get a look in, and that's not always happened. And it's for that reason. It's to make sure that we're not waiting for, test matches to be able to blood those players in. Amy was a great example on a brilliant trajectory prior to her ACL injury. And so I think we've got, Ellie Ratu's, Alicia Scholes, Amy Carter's, they're all there or thereabouts, but we have to be really clear on, you guys all want us to be successful, right, in the summer. You want us on the podium at the very least. We believe we're capable of winning the World Cup if we can be at our very best. And that's our intention, and our ambition is we're going to keep it high. We're not shying away from that. And I think you also have to just get that right balance between taking a team that can support each other, can draw upon experiences, tangible experiences, while still embracing, as I said, some of those new players into the team, which I think this has in abundance, with Liv and for me and Fran getting away back in great form. So yeah, I think we have got that balance, but I think you have to, that's the best way to answer it, to unveil a whole new team in a World Cup, that too could be damaging if you do it too soon. So you've got to get the pace of that change right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost drip feeding those positions in, and we don't know what might happen after the World Cup in the sense of retirements and things like that. And then, we have got that next cycle to kind of really blood those players through. Well, thank you, Jess. We really appreciate your time today. We know you're a very busy lady, but, really appreciate your honesty and openness with those answers. And hope to see you in Cape Town.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
So, Luce, what were your key takeaways from our discussion with Jess?
I think it was a really interesting one. One thing I did notice, and I think this is actually quite a stark contrast from some of the pre and post-match interviews that we've had in previous test series since Commonwealth Games, is that there actually seems to be a belief and a desire now that we will get into that gold medal match, whereas previously some of the phrasing from Jess has been around wanting to compete and almost like just turning up. But actually I feel like she really does believe that we will be able to get into that gold medal match game. Personally, I still have concerns. I think if you look at what our starting seven would be, or what I would say it is, that starting seven I think is fire, but it's whether we can get to the point of being able to put that out for a gold medal match that is concerning me. I'm still not 100% convinced about Nat Metcalfe being our fourth shooter. And I think with Nat, when she played in SSN, she only had 12 goals across 4 seasons. She had 59 goals for Thunder in 2022, and then only 20 goals so far this season. So to have that low level of shots under her belt, to take up a shooting position, that is a concern for me. And I think the midcourt as well, I don't think we've been bold enough there. So yeah, who knows? Like, we have the firepower to do it. I just don't think we'll be able to, personally.
I think it's interesting because, especially as we've seen Layla playing out a bit at wing defence, you could have sort of shuffled everyone forwards a little bit and then maybe afforded to take both Chelsea and Nat for wing attack cover. But I think that they had to make a decision on basically where we were going to be slightly top heavy. And we have been top heavy in the midcourt with a number of wing defences who potentially are offering quite similar things. And I just don't know if we've got quite enough firepower off the bench to really make an impact against the other top sides. However, like you say, the starting seven is very strong. Cardwell and Houseby, are on fire, but it's, can we protect them enough throughout the competition whilst also giving them enough time so they're fired up and ready to go, but they're not exhausted like Nat was at the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, 100%, because we had SDL as that backup wing attack option and didn't explore it. So actually, are we going to play Chelsea as that wing attack option? And in turn, will we actually give Nat a rest, or will we just move her into goal attack? Because that's not giving her a rest,
Yeah.
If anything, that's making it even worse because she's then got the pressure of shooting as well. But for me, I think that we're really missing an up and coming centre wing attack. Not just a wing attack and not just a centre. We're really missing that attacking centre. And I think, I wouldn't have taken Laura Malcolm and Imogen Allison. I think they offer you too similar of a style of play. Yeah. So,
if you're going to take Chelsea, you don't need Laura Malcolm as a backup wing attack. And actually, interestingly, in our conversation with Jess, she said that she's got 3 that can front up at centre and 2 at wing attack, which means she's potentially given up on Malcolm as a wing attack option.
Yeah, I picked up on that. I thought that was fascinating. And actually, I think that's the correct call. I think it's like putting a square peg into a round hole with Laura. And I actually feel incredibly sorry for her that she's been kind of forced to do that. Well, she might not have been forced to do it, but that she's been put in that position for 2 or 3 years that we tried to nail that. And I don't think it's paid off. And actually, if we'd invested in giving her time to be in more of a specialist wing defence, could that have paid off? I don't know.
Yeah, potentially.
Coming up next, we chat to Pam Cookey and Lisa Alexander to hear their thoughts on the Netball World Cup England Roses squad.
I don't know about you, Luce, but it gets to this point in the season and all I'm thinking about is getting new trainers. You know, when you're just eyeing them up all the way through, I'm feeling it.
Yeah, I love a bit of new stash, but I'm the type of person, I'll put all of these things into my basket, spend hours and hours looking around, but then I'll never actually go through with it. It just sits in my basket forevermore.
It's so true. I know, honestly, can relate. But luckily, Lovell Netball are offering a 15% discount on all first-time orders with code NETPOD15 at lovellnetball.co.uk. So you're sorted.
Yeah, and honestly, Lovell Netball is the place to go. Whatever you want, they've got absolutely everything.
Everything. Such a good range. Yeah.
So whether you're looking for trainers, you're looking for bibs, you're looking for supports, whatever you need.
Sports bras, all of that stuff.
Sports bras, exactly. They have got you covered. So don't forget, that's a 15% discount off all first-time orders with the code NETPOD15 at lovellnetball.co.uk.
Love a bit of Lovell. Oh my God.
Love a bit of Lovell.
Love a bit of Lovell. Happy shopping, guys.
Well, we are thrilled to welcome some legends of the game onto the pod once again. Already Qtr Time pod alumni. We've got Pam Cookey and Lisa Alexander. How are you both doing?
I'm excited. Hey. I'm in Bali on holiday and loving seeing your faces.
Oh, thank you for squeezing us in. We're absolutely delighted to talk to you both. So thank you so much for your time. So we're going to crack straight on because there is so much to digest with the Roses Netball World Cup squad that was announced yesterday. So the England squad selected includes 810 caps. There's 4 players who have been chosen to represent England in the last 4 major tournaments. 2 players for whom this is their first big competition and 5 players for whom this is their first World Cup. And we also have a nice little sprinkling of youngsters as well. So what would you say are the strengths of the England Roses at the moment? Lisa, we'll come to you first.
I'll straight out the shooting end. Eleanor Cardwell and Helen Housby, both world-class players and very, very special players, actually. I think Eleanor this year has certainly shown her ability to adapt her game to the Australian Super Netball. And she's been a breath of fresh air, truly. She truly has in so many ways. She's shown her skill and her ability that we got to see, well, I got to see close at hand, particularly with Pulse versus Thunder games last season. And, you know, she's taken all before her. I don't think there's been a defender that's got on top of her at the moment. Obviously, all the countries will be looking at her closely to try and unpick her abilities, but she's got an ability to change her game and adapt. And her mental approach to the game has been I've found it really illuminating. I found it exciting to see her smiling and really enjoying and embracing Adelaide. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, 100%. I think the leadership role that she's taken on there as well in her first season with Thunderbirds, in her first season at SSN, has just been absolutely astounding. But Pam, what would you say are England Roses' strengths at the moment?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Ellie Cardwell is doing. Well, she developed here in the Super League. She's now taking over to SSN. It doesn't happen overnight, so we must take credit for what we've been doing here in the UK. But like Lisa was saying, she's fearless. She's got such versatility, whether it's goal shooter or goal attack. And she just knows how to win and take games by the scruff of the neck, and she's not afraid of anyone. So I'm loving that from her. But what else is great in this England team is we have got that, we always talk about it, a fabulous team has youth and experience combined, and then that also a little bit of sprinkling of magic. And though this team isn't what I would have selected, I think there are some players in there that have just, like your Jiva mentors, your Nat Metcalf, your Jay Clarks, those are your experienced players. And then you've got the Fumi Fadoju firehouse. You've also got Fran Williams that's kind of been, she's so steady, she's so consistent. And I'm so pleased for her that she's worked so hard this year and now has got that selection. And I'm pleased for Liv Sheen. I think she's also developed the strength in her game, but also now she's not afraid to go to the post. She's a lot stronger to take ball off defenders, doesn't kind of back away anymore. So that learning she's got over these past year is definitely a good asset for us going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And she's just got so much potential. Liv's absolutely going to be a staple of this England team for years to come, I think. But I think if we look at the squad and compare it to the Commonwealth Games squad, there are only 4 changes. And obviously we finished 4th in that Com Games. It was not what we wanted at all. Williams and Fadoju have come in for retirees of Ebony Zuro-Brown and Stacey Francis-Bateman. Cheen has come in for retired Harton and Pittman in for SDL, not a sort of direct swap, but taking that place. And considering the result wasn't what we were hoping for, should England be worried at essentially taking a very similar or the same squad? Do you think it indicates potentially a lack of depth and an over-reliance on these experienced players? Pam, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a concern, I would say, based on what did happen at the Commonwealth Games, and not seeing much change over the Super League for some of those players. And so I think we are struggling with depth, and that's, for me, more to do with what our programme is in the back side of things, not just like coming up to these competitions and everyone's like, oh, who's the squad going to be? We should really have a clearer idea of who's performing, who's the best combinations, who we know can deliver on that world stage. But I don't think we have enough players at this moment in time that we can go, yes. So I am a little bit scared, I won't lie. But what I do know is that these girls, when they get there, will give 100%. And it's just about how we bring these players together in the styles against the other nations.
At least I can see you were nodding furiously there.
Yeah. I think Pam's done a beautiful job of the summary of the differences. And, you know, you can take it 2 ways. You can go really hard and be absolutely ruthless and say there needs to be massive changes since last year. Okay. But when you consider it, England were not that far away from getting themselves into a gold medal final. And I know that they didn't get the result they wanted, but they were very close. And in particularly one game, and we might have, you know, if we were coaching, we may have made different, you know, decisions, etc. And I'm certain that Jess has learnt from it enormously. And she has trialled different combinations since then. You know, Fumi's come out on court. I think we all said when we were there watching it together, and you guys were there too, that we were, you know, would Fumi have made a difference? And look, there's no other way to say it, but she would have. Yeah. She would have got all. She would have been unusual and hard to understand how she plays. I think the only problem is that now the Australians have played on her. They're going to be monitoring and performance analysing her to within an inch of her. But you've still got experience of Jiva behind her. Jiva knows and understands what is required. Has Jiva got the physical and mental capacity to play game after game after game? That's a question mark for me in a tournament. And that would be the same question mark I'd have for Jade as well. I think both of them are enormous players. Like, they're just the, you know, greatest of all time, 6 World Cups. But have they got the ability to put that out there match after match? So it's going to have to be managed so well. Jess will have to manage this. That's part of what great World Cup winning coaches have to do. That's your ability to put the right combinations out at the right time, build them to the final. You have to have a bit of luck on your side. You can't have injuries. But, you know, England's got some nice change-ups if they get an injury to their top 7. I don't know what their top 7 is at the moment. Pam probably knows what it is, but I'm not certain what it is. I'm concerned about the centre court. I'm worried about it, because I know how powerful Australia's centre court is. It is, wow. There will be players that miss out in this Australian Diamonds team that should have been in there that can't fit. So, that is the level that England have to compete against, and it's mightily important in a tournament, the centre court. I'm worried about the wing defence position.
We've got about 7 of them, so I'm
worried you haven't got a specialist really. Imo, look, of course that's probably where she plays her best, but is she really at that very, very top level, the wing defence that you need? And I think that was another problem with England at Com Games last year.
And also when they went over to Australia, I wasn't sure that Imo was your kind of strongest impact player coming in. And that's why I think she's developed her game massively at wing defence, but you need her to be able to play centre strongly as well. And with injuries and whatnot, I don't think she's played consistently enough in those 2 positions to be that player that you're talking about, Lisa.
That's an issue for me with the team that's been selected. There's Jiva, who really, is really a keeper. Chelsea's really just a wing attack, and the problem is you put yourself in a pickle when you haven't got that level of flexibility that, say, an Australian or a New Zealand team will have. And there's Jamaica, and there's Uganda, and there's Malawi, and there's South Africa. This is going to be the most hotly contested Netball World Cup ever in the history of the sport.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And I think that where you talk about the centre court, Australia being so strong, but Jamaica have proved that centre court does not have to be the strongest because they've got 2 bookends that are firing. And so it's about how you can make sure that your team is playing to its strength. And like you say, I'm not sure where, as in our England squad at the moment, we have enough versatility changes that can combat those different strengths from the other teams, if that makes sense. And you're talking about Jiva there. The height thing for me is one in this squad. Like, this defensive lineup is powerhouse. It's probably the only unit that everyone has agreed to in who should be in the World Cup squad. But in saying that, apart from Jiva, there's no height. So Fumi is 5'9".
5'8".
Layla's just 6 foot, 5'8". Yeah,
she can jump to 6 foot.
Oh my God, she's got hops. Yeah, she's got hops for fun. But then when you're looking at the other nations, then the Fowler's 6'5", Wilson 6'2", Sterling 6'1", Clow is 6'3", Conan at goal shooter 6'3", and so. Yes, you might have the power to jump or whatnot, but also that what Jiva has brought in the past is that kind of dominant figure in the back where you're almost afraid already just looking down the court because of the presence she has in the court.
I know that definitely. That was always an issue with Jiva, is your centre courts had to view where she was and they couldn't see the space to put into, say, even a Seabass. So that was the great advantage of Jiva back in keeper. And if you've got somebody shorter, even Ebony Beckford-Chambers still got in the view of our centre courts. She's a bit shorter, but she still was big enough for us to have to really work hard. How are we going to get this ball around her? I think that's the problem for England. Like, Fran and Fumi will do they'll play their guts out, and so will Layla. Like, they're just, the 4 of them will play their guts out for their country. And I love them all because, I'm a bit of a defender at heart. Sorry, Pam. But having said that, also I think England now understand all of them need to play defence really well. And that's one of the advantages of Helen and Eleanor particularly, but Liv too. Liv knows this. It was ground into her at Pulse. You are a defender when they've got the ball. So I think there will be a lot more team focus on defence for this English lineup to really help protect the ball coming down and help Fumi, play to her strengths, which is to read the ball and take the intercept.
And that's what Pulse has done so well this season, in terms of it has been a whole 7 defensive end coming through that court, and that's what's allowed their back line to get so many turnovers and them being the best defensive unit in the league so far.
That was definitely ground into them when I was there, definitely, and I know Fiona will have continued that, and Sam, and that's how we know defence wins championships. Sorry, but it does.
But just going back to Pam, you said this isn't the squad you would have chosen. Are there any other players that you were surprised weren't included? Who would you say? Is there anyone maybe whose surname is Glasgow that you were thinking would or wouldn't be in?
So for me, no, Glasgow was not anywhere near on my radar. And why? Because she's not been any part of an England programme beforehand. None of the players have even, apart from the Chelsea who played with her at Fever, no one's had those connections. So I don't see how you could just bring her and slot her into a World Cup team and expect to have some magic. And I also think what does it say about the English players that have been in that programme? Are you saying that they're not good enough to be on the World Cup? So why are they in your programme then if you're going to just pick out from overseas? I'm really disappointed for Sophie Drake from Lewis. I think she has had a fabulous season this year for Storm, but internationally as well. If we remember back to the New Zealand series, the Cadbury series where they won that, she was integral in that. If we remember other games that she's come on, even down in Australia when she came on and she had that impact. And I think she can play goal attack. She can also play a good wing attack that wasn't necessarily used as much in the Commonwealth Games to give Nat a rest, because we needed her firing in those latter games and she was knackered. And that's no disrespect to her at all, but you can't go to a World Cup and play every single match, well, pretty much every single match, and expect to be ready for those semis in the final. So, and you were just talking about the three-court defence, Lisa, which England definitely going to need in this. Yeah, Sophie's a great defensive attacker.
She's an unbelievably good defensive attacker, and that's probably why it's a very tough decision to leave her out of the 12. For an Australian coach to see that, I think, we'll probably, I don't know what Stacey would think, but I think she would think exactly what Pam was saying. Well, that's one less really good defensive attacker we have to worry about. And also, Sophie plays quite an unusual and different game, so it's harder to match up on her. She's quite slippery, gets around things, she's fast. It's maybe just her shooting that cost her in the end. I don't know, Pam. Have you got any clue on why she missed out?
No idea why she missed out. Yeah, definitely great to know why people were selected and also why the other ones didn't miss out. But I think I would always pick on form in terms of leading up to the competition, not necessarily what you've been doing a year. And I'm not Coach Lisa, so I'll leave that one. But in terms of if I was a player who my teammates I'd want around me would be those that I know have been consistently performing over the past season, because then you're just ready to go at the major competition. You're not starting to build everything up again. And I think this year her percentages have been up, her times going to post has been up in those 90%. So I wouldn't say that would be a reason not to.
And I mean, Storm have performed well, so they're right up there. So she's going to be showing her ability to play under pressure in finals as well. So look, she's a hard luck story. There's no doubt about it. Liv, I think, deserves her position due to the Joe Harton retirement, and for all of you spoke about before. She's unusual, hard to match up on, but it's her first World Cup, and she won't probably get as much court time as others, but she needs to get some. I think it's really important that the players that go and in that team, they have to get some experience. Otherwise, it's a wasted event for them.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that came up with the quad series, is that we took Liv over and didn't give her any court time against Australia or New Zealand.
She played in one game,
And I think that was possibly a little bit of a mistake.
It's a missed opportunity. I know you want to win, but you've got to get them out there at some stage. You've got to even just get them out for 5 minutes. It was always something in my mind about giving players, and I had far less opportunities as a national coach to get my players on court because we hardly ever played anyone other than New Zealand. So it's not like it's easy to get everyone out on court. But it's absolutely imperative. Don't pick them unless you're going to play them.
England have been incredibly fortunate in the number of test series that they have had against other top international sides, more so than any other side, actually. So I agree. I think it has been a bit of a missed opportunity. And particularly when you think, she is now going to come up against a Courtney Bruce and a Kelly Jury. So that exposure would have been absolutely crucial, even if it was 5 minutes.
Yes and no, but there are some considerations here also, because she's not as known. That's another good, that can work for you as well. So I will put that alternative view out as well.
Yeah. I totally agree that, Lisa, in terms of not as known, but on the flip side of that, when you haven't practiced against that opposition or that style of play. It makes it, in your head, you're thinking, oh, this is all very new to me. Whereas even if it's just a quarter, like you were saying, or 2 quarters in different games, then at least you start to feel what it's like to be at that level and against those opposition, because it's mentally just as much as it is physically.
I sent a message to Liv and I said, well done and really proud of you. And I said, now just make sure you get out and do some more sessions with Hallie and get her shoving you around like the Australians do.
Love that. One of the other key talking points that's been around on social media when it comes to people who haven't been selected, obviously SDL is one of them, but the other name that's been bandied around is Elle McDonald. And obviously we've seen a little bit of her in some recent test series, but not a huge amount. And considering how heavy I'd say the wing defence bib is in the squad, she would have given us that kind of centre wing attack option, and obviously hasn't been selected. Do you think that she should have been in that mid-court 4? Pam, I'll come to you first.
Honestly, no, because we first banged onto the scene at the Fast 5, didn't she? And yes, she's committed to coming over and starting the programme and playing up in Leeds, and I think learning so much from Liana. I'm not sure that I've seen enough from her to say that she should be in that 4 straight away. I think she's still got a lot more learning to do. And also I think there's other players that, for example, Hannah Joseph. I think she has had a great season for Loughborough Lightning. So I wouldn't necessarily, if you're going to put Elle McDonald, I would have said put Hannah Joseph in before then, in that wing attack position. I think we have centre, I know they're wing defence centres, but I think they're a stronger centre than she is a centre wing attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Lisa, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely agree with Pam and her assessment, because Pam's watched her much more closely than I have this year, and I think that's a fair decision to make in terms of her perhaps lack of experience in the English system as well. But we've got to be mindful, Elle was not a starting 7 player for Vixens and either for Thunderbirds. So I don't want to be unfair to Elle either, but, really, if you're going to make it, she should have probably been the player on the court for Vixens and then gone over, a bit like Sasha is playing, obviously, and I agree with Pam around the thinking around Sasha. She should have probably been brought into the English program earlier than this. We don't know all the backstories. So, and I understand completely, why would you take the risk of bringing her in and the other part is also, as somebody has pointed out to me, that there's not a lot of time for these Australian girls once they finish, and particularly Perth, if they're in finals, how much time does she get with the English team to practice before it's too hard? And we all know how important combinations are and working. So I think it's been a smart move not to include her at this stage, but also, it's very, Elle McDonald, she's given herself every chance. So good on her for what she's done.
And I think actually just on Glasgow, we spoke to Jess Thirlby yesterday, and she didn't rule out the future prospect of Glasgow coming into the side. And she's only 24. So, if we were to nab her, because you could probably say that there's quite a few people in front of her in the diamond setup, that it would take her a number of years to get that, and she may have more success with England if she can integrate in the next cycle. So I think there's still an option there to do that. But I probably agree with you. I think it was a flashy idea of like, oh, we can have someone come in at the last minute, but actually those combinations are probably what is one of the few things that sets England apart. I think we may not have the players like matching up directly against their opposition and every one of them exceeding, but as those units and as those connected sections of the team, I think that's where we can really stand out.
Just get Eleanor and Helen firing. I mean, wow, you're going to be able to score like all the time, and it's got to live then to pop in, and so the thinking around Sasha is really good, because I think, if I was a young athlete of her, and we were talking about this, my husband and I, when we were talking about Sasha and saying, well, if I was Sasha, I would probably choose England as well, because I feel I'm going to have more of a chance of playing for that country than Australia at this stage.
But that's really sad to be in that position though, where you've got a player that's, I can't get into Australia, so I'm going to go play for England. And so that just breaks my heart.
It's true, but it's more.
I said to him, I said on this walk, I said, if I had have been offered the Scottish team through my, ancestors, which is, about six times ago, I would have put my hand up. But he goes, no, you wouldn't. Yeah. And I went, nah, you probably
exactly.
I would have played for Australia.
Exactly. So what I'd like to think is, okay, like I said, it breaks my heart to think that, and we should be investing in our the GB England GB. I've never ever played for GB in my life. England shooters to go through. And if Sasha Glasgow wants to commit to England and come over and be in the programme full time, and then at the end of it, she is the best player to be picked, then happy days. But just dropping people in willy-nilly when they feel like it because they feel like they can't get into Australia.
I agree. I don't think
it's not great for the future. Yeah.
No, it's not. It doesn't look good for all your work you're doing with your juniors back in England. But Great Britain, that's not a bad idea, Pam.
Yeah. We did discuss this in our CEO episode. So really, really interesting prospect.
I think Pam let it slip there. She's interested in
come out of retirement for that.
And so thank you both. I think this has been really great because I love just hearing people's overall opinions and from such an informed perspective. You both have had such a great experience. I think, there's a lot of discourse online about this person and that person and everyone's opinions, but actually you guys have both really lived through these experiences and been to numerous World Cups and Commonwealth Games between you. So yeah, we really appreciate your insight. And we just wanted to ask, it's a bit of a tricky one because obviously there's many things that could happen between now and the World Cup. But where do you think that England realistically will finish? Pam, I'll come to you first.
Oh, wowzers, you've gone in there, Lucy, haven't you?
Going hard.
I think they have the capability to get that bronze medal, and it will all depend on how you utilise your players through how Jess utilises and the coaching team utilise the players through the competition, because in effect you just need 7 players that are really firing on the given day and you can take this. So I'm hopeful that they will definitely get the bronze and we've got a chance to get into that final as well. But I think it's going to be a hard task for them just in terms of that pool that we've got to pick from.
Lisa?
Yeah, I would hope to see them medal, definitely. And I agree with Pam. They've got the capabilities of medaling. It's really down to how they gel together, their leadership together, the experienced players that are there, bringing them, not taking any easy step backward, but really going for it and holding everyone to account with high standards. And, consistently, they could then really put some fire into some of the sides, or they could finish as low as 6th if they're not careful, because it is so competitive.
Really. And like you said at the start, Lisa, like this is a great position where world netball is at the moment, where we have so many teams that are potentially heading for those medal positions. And so that should, in effect, lift this England side.
I mean, I think it's going to be an extremely exciting summer. I know I'm looking forward to it. And thanks again so much to you both for coming on the podcast. It's really great to hear from you and to catch up, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys.
I am barracking for the Diamonds, though.
Lisa.
Oh, Lisa.
Let it go, Lisa. Let it go.
Oh, thank you both so much. Take care.
No worries. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
I thought that was a really interesting discussion with Pam and Lisa. I think they are completely right about Glasgow. I think sometimes it's like, oh, there's a new toy, shall we play with it? But actually, my only concern is if we wait, will she go into the Diamonds? Because I don't know if Stacey Marenkovic is thinking tactically, or maybe this is just me being a bit sassy Scorpio, but I would be maybe giving her a couple of Diamonds caps so that she can't go and play for England. But I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think that Stacey would do that personally, but like for me, she's not too far off getting into that diamond squad. Like Steph Wood isn't going to be around forever. I can't see her sticking around for that much longer. And I think Sasha has just grown and grown and grown. So it wouldn't surprise me if she does get offered a space in the diamond squad, because there are a couple of spaces still left in their full-time program that they haven't filled. So I mean, who knows? But it's interesting, Tamsin's article, like she was so dead set on, yes, we'd bring Glasgow in, because by nature of her being out in SSN and playing there week in, week out, she's already better than our next best, I think was the phrase that she used, which I think I agree with to an extent. And I think it's just such a shame that this didn't happen either before or just after Com Games, because if she'd been able to be part of those, you know, quad series and Jamaica series or whatever, I think it would be a very, very different story. So the timing really has just been appalling in that respect.
Yeah. And I think although that's not necessarily a great thing that she potentially is better than our next best, it's kind of just an indication of where we are at now. Like, we have a lot of work to do on our pathway and developing those players, and the SSN is the best competition in the world. I know we talk about it all the time, but it is undoubtedly, it has the best players, and Sasha is getting that exposure against the real elite every single week throughout the season, and that isn't something that we're getting for the majority of our roses. While the Super League is extremely strong and is the strongest it's ever been, there is still a way to go. And I think when we won the Commonwealth Games, we had a vast majority of our players were playing over in SSN. And this time around, we haven't got that. We've only got 3 players who are playing in the SSN against that top opposition week in, week out.
Yeah, and I think that's a considerable factor, you know. And I'm so on the fence of this whole Glasgow thing, because I think she is such a talent. She's actually one of my favourite shooters in SSN. But I completely appreciate what Pam says around the pathway. And actually, is it almost a little bit of an insult to those up and coming Roses players? But I think you have to compare, like you say, where England are in terms of the professionalisation of the game and the pathways that we have to Australia. And it's no discredit at all to the likes of a Lois Pearson or a Berry Neal, who without a doubt will be in our Roses squad in the very near future. But if you have the offer of someone of that caliber, why wouldn't you take it? Like, I'm so on the fence of it. I do think the really timing was wrong though.
Yeah, I think it's the right decision not to have her now, but I think we don't want to lose her in the future if she ends up going to play for the Diamonds.
Yeah, in the same way that our players going out to SSN improves their game, and we improve their game as well. Like, her coming into our program and working with our future Roses would help to improve their game as well. So it's not, you know, it's not like
just one-sided. Yeah,
it's a two-way street, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much all for listening to this super special bonus episode of Qtr Time. We cannot wait to bring you more netball chat and another super special guest back to our regular scheduled programming next week.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media at Qtr Time Pod for the latest netball updates. Get involved in the conversation online by letting us know what you thought of the England Roses selection. Do you agree? What changes would you make? We'd love to know.
We'd also really appreciate it, as always, if you could just take a moment to rate and review, as it helps other people to find the podcast. If you enjoy listening to the pod, do let us know. So many of you have got in touch recently and we live for it, truly. So do spread the word of your netball pals so that even more people can get involved in the conversation. And finally, don't forget to take advantage of our exclusive 15% discount with Lovell Netball by entering the code NETPOD15 at the checkout at lovellnetball.co.uk. Take care, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.